How you doing? This is Coffee Break with Jimmy. Of course, what the big talk of right now, everybody's talking about it, was Dr. Fauci. And, I thought they were done talking about him. I thought this was all done after he got his pardon from President Biden. But apparently he's got this, what they call the Fauci diary, which is his memos, whatever he's got that he has written. Maybe they've had this for a number of years. I don't know. But now just last week they were talking about it. He was before the Senate committee, and they were asking him a question about it. And of course, he took the fifth, I think, 111 times. And so he didn't answer any questions. But maybe he didn't answer any questions because it would have implicated him on something else other than the virus. So he just took the fifth on everything, even the color of his tire, the color of the carpet. He took the fifth on all that. But the whole thing is maybe they've had his notes or diary, whatever you want to call them, and then maybe they've had it for some time. I don't know. Maybe there's other things that he can be indicted for. Now, this is my thing, okay? I think this is all about nothing, because I really don't care about Fauci, but I do understand this is something that's happened in our lifetime, and it happened, the year 2020, and this it messed up the presidency. I mean, now they had to have mail-in voting. There was no in-house voting. Everybody had to mail in their votes. And somehow or another, Joe Biden got, we've talked about this, Joe Biden got 81 million votes and Trump got 76 or 74. And I think whatever votes that Trump got, I think they were legitimate. But that's neither here nor there. The whole thing was Trump, apparently, according to them, Trump lost the presidency. I don't believe he did. But that affected this. This COVID-19 affected this. And this has been going on for this gain-of-function research that Fauci and Dr. Birch and Dr. Redmond, they were the three main doctors. They're the so-called experts on this. And everybody was I know Trump was. He was trying to follow their lead. But at the same time, Trump really didn't want this to go on too long. He figured, God, I remember them talking about it at first. Well, maybe they'll shut things down for about a month, a couple of weeks to a month, and they'll get things back to normal. But then after the experts took over and they were telling, well, you got to have the 6 feet. You got to stay 6 feet from one another. You can't be in the same room. Can't have too many people in one room. You got to wear a mask. And then it got up to a point where they were saying you had to wear 3 masks. And now I thought this whole thing was ridiculous. They didn't have a vaccine for it, so Trump tried this. I forget what they call it now. It's they're going to do the vaccine warp speed. That's what it was called. This vaccine was called warp speed. Well, everybody knows a vaccine takes a while for it to work. All right, it's usually a vaccine takes us anywhere from 5 to 10 years for it to work. It just doesn't happen overnight. So this warp speed was a little bit too much for me. I couldn't believe that. And then there were other things. There was other remedies that they had, ivermectin, or I think that's what it was called, and they had some other remedies, as they said, that could kill the virus, or can work on the virus, but no one really. They were putting the fear of death in everybody, and I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about other countries, and that's my whole point with this, talking about this today, is that Joe Biden gave him a pardon, gave Dr. Fauci a pardon. I don't know if he pardoned Birch or if he pardoned Redmond. I don't know. Maybe their pardons went and coincided with his. I don't know. But his pardon went from 10 years prior to. This went from when Joe Biden was out of office, which was 24, and the pardon lasted from there all the way back 10 years prior to that. So if he did anything wrong, anything that he could have done that was against the law, possibly, and he would be pardoned for 10 years prior to that. So he took the fifth on everything. And maybe, like I said, maybe there was a reason he took the fifth. He didn't need to if he had a pardon. He can go ahead and answer the questions, but it might have implicated him on something else. because there's other countries that were affected. It wasn't just the United States. So the president of the United States wasn't the only one that could pardon him. Okay, maybe pardon him for the United States. But this happened in other countries, Canada, Mexico, all kinds of countries. And 100, I believe it was 180 some or 180 some, 180 some countries that were affected here, if I remember the number right. So there's other, and businesses were shut down. People couldn't see their loved ones. It happened to me. My Aunt Mary died, and when she got sick, we couldn't go see her because she had COVID-19, and they didn't want anybody else to get it, and others had COVID-19, so they couldn't go see her. So she was kind of locked down. And then when she died, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her. And then I didn't even get a chance to go to her funeral because those who were at her funeral, you had to have the 6 feet away from each other, and you couldn't have gatherings, so you couldn't even go to a funeral. So this affected us in so many ways, not just business, and it did affect us a lot. It affected my business. I mean, there were some of my customers didn't want us to come onto the place unless we've got the vaccine or we were cleared to go, and so there was a couple of them that I didn't go out and work for during that period. So it affected us in a way, in some ways. And then this also affected the way I understand it. Now, I don't know this for sure. I haven't seen it factually, but I know that this bird flu virus that was here last year or 2 years ago, and apparently it's still around. Okay, it's a virus, and it's not as bad as they thought it was originally, the way I understand it. But when it came about, this bird flu virus, and I guess this was gain of function research also. And they were doing something because it was killing the birds, killing the chickens and turkeys, and then that's what it was affecting. And apparently they did something with in this gain of function research laboratory, whether it was done in the Wuhan lab. I believe that COVID-19 was created in the Wuhan lab, and some of them say there was, some say it wasn't. I believe that's where it came from. It didn't come from a wet market like they said originally. But that affected the bird flu, where it just didn't end up with the birds. It started going to the mammals. Now it started affecting the cows. It started affecting, the production on the dairy industry. Now it affected us a little bit. Some cows got sick and came back. Some of them got sick and died. But there's a lot of times you have viruses and stuff that affect different animals a different way, and this is part of nature. But you think about this vaccine. The warp speed. Some say that was a good thing. I think it was done a little quick. And some people that took the vaccine, after they got the vaccine, they died, and maybe they had some other comorbidities that kind of existed already, but they died from it. And if they had anything else, so a person had cancer, well, they died from COVID-19. It was just written off as COVID-19. No matter what they had, no matter what was wrong, it was COVID-19. I had a friend of mine I went to see one day. He was in the hospital, and he wasn't doing very well. And I had to go to work, and I said I was going to be back in a week. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to come back next week and see you. But next week, that's when they first shut everything down. I never got to see this buddy of mine again, and he ended up passing away a couple of weeks after that. And it was something else that he had, but, they called it COVID-19. So it affected us in more ways than one. And if he did pay for this to be done, this gain of function research, and Fauci was behind it. I know Birch and him were they kind of worked together, and Redmond did too, but Redmond, he started seeing things a little bit differently. This Dr. Redmond, I don't think he believed things that should have been done the way they were done, and he started backing off a little bit, and I think he knew something was going on. He knew there was something that was wrong. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you can tell he was starting to distance himself from Fauci and Redmond, and Birch. But you think about it. The other day, a friend of mine and I were talking about this, and I even talked to my wife a little bit about it. This when you went to school, you took, I don't know, three to five different shots that we had to have, and and that's what you took. You know, measles. I think it was chicken pox, measles, and there was a couple of other shots that you had to have before you started school and as you went through school. Now apparently, the kids today have to have around 62 shots, I believe it is. It may not be that many, but it's quite a few shots that they have to have now. In order, well, they don't have to have them all right before they start school. They have it as they're going through school, probably up until they're around, I don't know, third or fourth grade or something. But they have a lot of different shots that they have to be in school. They never had this before. And now, I don't know, but I don't remember kids having autism, okay? This wasn't something that I really ever heard of or was ever really said that there was different kids that had autism. I remember this one kid I went to school with. He was in, I don't know, my middle grades there in elementary school, 5th, 6th grade. His name was Timmy Slayton. I'll never forget this kid. He would look up at the sun and he would wipe his hands like this across his face at the sun. Now, we just thought this was something he had some kind of a Tourette syndrome of sorts, and maybe that was. Maybe he had a learning disability, because autism is somewhat of a learning disability. But the first time a cousin of mine, Lonnie, his son, was autistic, and he told me about it. And I guess it was a learning disability, but I guess his son was doing okay. He was getting treatment for it. He was going to school and having help, and I guess he was doing pretty good with that. But there was other kids at this autism, because there's different stages. Some of it a little bit worse than others. But this wasn't something I really knew about, or I've talked to people my age, never really knew about autism back in the 50s and not 50s, excuse me, that's before my time. The 60s and 70s, never really heard about it back then. But maybe all these vaccines that we've been taking, when I was in the Marine Corps, I think I got, I got at least a half a dozen shots. And I still got the scars on the arms to prove them. And but I got different vaccines while I was in the Marine Corps. Of course, this was relative to going overseas and polio and different things. But one of the shots we had to take when we were kids was a polio shot. But there was other vaccines that they gave you shots for when you were going overseas, because there was other diseases in other countries, and so you had to be vaccinated for that. So I got those. But now it's so many vaccinations, so many shots. I saw a meme the other day. Who had the best shot? You had Muhammad Ali, you had Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson, and Dr. Fauci, and who had the best shot. It was a little bit of a meme there, but you have to understand that Fauci probably had the worst shot, if you ask me. But anyway, that's been something that's been going on for some time. Now, if autism has anything to do with it, and I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but this is just something that it's relative to the time when you never heard about something, then all of a sudden you start hearing about it, and then as you get a little bit older, maybe we start hearing more and more things about it. Maybe it wasn't something they knew about in the 60s and the 70s. Maybe autism wasn't something they knew about, because that's why a doctor practices medicine, right? So they practice the medicine because new things come about, new things are found out about. There, like my father had MS when I was a young boy, and no one knew about multiple sclerosis back then, and so they didn't know how to treat it. And this was in 1965. But this was something that all of a sudden now you start hearing more and more about it. I mean, back then you heard about muscular dystrophy, because Jerry Lewis used to have his muscular dystrophy telethons, and he did that every year. And so you knew a little bit about that, but that was something that you started hearing about different things. When you were in school, you heard about chickenpox, you heard about the measles, you heard about these different sicknesses that people would get. And then, of course, they had vaccinations for those things. We had to have those vaccinations when I was a kid. And so it makes you wonder about, how much this has to do with that. And if someone pulls the trigger on something like this, we're talking about Fauci. And Fauci, I guess in his diaries, they're talking about how he was he felt so famous. Everywhere he went, people knew who he was. Oh, Dr. Fauci, and they were saying he was the best looking guy. He was on different, and I couldn't say that. He more looks like that Mad magazine guy that, the kid with the missing tooth. That's why I look at Dr. Fauci, and that's what I see. And he kind of reminds me of that. But, they were saying so many things about him, and he was eating this up. He was loving the attention. And he had this down in his memoirs, in his diary, if you will. And so now this stuff is out. They try questioning him about it. They're going to question. They're going to. I guess they're going to. What is it called about Congress? When he didn't go along with Congress, there's a title of that. I can't think of the title right now, where it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, they're going to charge him with that, and because he didn't answer any questions, even though he could, because he had a pardon from President Biden. So there was something that could have been done there. I don't know, but maybe he just kept his mouth shut and he did the Fifth Amendment because there was something that maybe that he did something somewhere else where he can get indicted and taken to court and maybe spend some time in jail over this. I don't know that either. This is all just coming about in the last couple of weeks. So we're going to see where that goes. But if he did something wrong, I mean, he cost us so much money. And closing our businesses cost us so much, and losing touch with our loved ones that we were able to see them before they died. Some of them died because of it. Some of them died because of the shots. Some of the shots affected different people differently. But so we're going to see where that goes. But I think there's something a little bit deeper here. And if you go back, like I said, you start thinking about how all these shots and all that these kids got to take today before just going to school, maybe it affects them. And and during COVID-19, that was another thing too that I failed to mention. During that period, I don't know, it was a 3 or 4 year period there, and it affected some kids probably more than others. Some that have, learning disabilities, or some that have a tough time just learning, period. And it affected them in their schooling. I mean, their numbers, the numbers were down anyway from reading and arithmetic and so on and so forth. The numbers were already down anyway. This didn't help those kids out. This didn't help them in that period of their life when they do most of their studying, most of their learning. That's the best time for them to learn things, reading, spelling, and arithmetic are the main things. And it hurt kids during that period. And if Dr. Fauci, if he caused this, well, a friend of mine said the other day, he said, putting an 85-year-old man in jail isn't going to serve a purpose. And he goes, but you think about it. When you got a kid somebody that's 20 years old or 25 years old, and they do something wrong, they kill somebody or hurt somebody, and they spend the rest of their life in prison. They end up dying in prison. Well, what's the difference between that and what Dr. Fauci did 5 years ago? He's got to serve. He's got to pay for what he did. And if that means prison time, well, Dr. Fauci, that means prison time. Anyway, so this is Coffee Break with Jimmy. Please comment and subscribe. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Coffee Break. Thanks.